Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer!
What a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it!
And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal are in front.
There is nothing more annoying than a bunch of people bitching and moaning and giving their opinion about a list of fixtures where every team plays every other team twice. So let's do that now. This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. We're going to complain about the fixture list. It is an annual tradition where we look at a list of all the teams in the Premier League, see that we're playing them all twice, and somehow arrive at the conclusion that we've been screwed. In addition, though, coming up down the road, Mohamed, you might know him as Mo Squared on Twitter. He is a stats bomb analyst and scout extraordinaire. He has phenomenal ability to break down young players and prospects and things like that. And we're going to talk to him about the transfer rumors. So there's plenty of transfers coming up on this pod. If you missed it, Clive and I did a whip around of all of the transfers on Patreon earlier this week. That is up. You can listen to it now if you're a patron. If you're not, no worries. We got plenty of transfer talk on this pod, but we will be doing a weekly Patreon transfer whip around throughout the summer, and we'll have some special guests for that as well. So something fun to do if you want to join us. Otherwise, of course, there'll still be plenty of stuff right here for you to listen to, covering all the transfer rumors of players that we will inevitably not sign. Here to talk to me about the fixtures is Paul. You can find him on Twitter at PosGinMyPants. Hello, Pos.
Woohoo!
Woohoo, indeed. Before we talk fixtures, let's just really quickly find something else to slate the club about. I kid, but I don't. So two things. First, the Burgess news. Darren Burgess sacked, leaving the club. I'm curious just to get your take. I mean, we know basically nothing about this other than what's made it out into the public, and really that's not very much. So if you just had to take a wild-ass shot in the dark guess at what's happened here, what would your analysis be?
Well, somebody's to blame for shit politically.
Do you think this is one of those cases of I confess he did it?
Might be. But like a head has to roll. Like I've started looking at Arsenal as like the Soviet Union post the 1917 revolution, and it's just this bloodlust with heads rolling, where everybody's more of an ideologue than the guy whose head he just chopped off.
I feel like when we talk about heads rolling, can you keep that more to France and the French Revolution? I think there's more the guillotine resonates a little more there. Okay.
Yeah, I could go that way too. I could swing
terror.
towards France, but so I think Darren is somewhat the victim of somebody's got to get blamed, and it's either him or Emery that embarrass themselves. But there's no way he gets fired if he and Emery were on the same page. So they clearly weren't on the same page. They might have been kind of in the middle there somewhere, but they were not in lock sync. I think it's interesting as well that Shad Forsyth is now not leaving the club, which was kind of interesting that he was. And maybe that's he was just offered a cool job at AC Milan, so he took the move. Or maybe he had his own frustrations with how things were going. But, I mean, he's the longer serving guy there, and it looks like, at least according to the media, and they never lie, Shad is actually coming back to take that Darren Burgess position. It's interesting that he didn't get in the first place. So that's kind of is it just convenient, or
there's a lot of promote from within going on, Arsenal. I mean, Vinay gets promoted after Ivan leaves. Kajagugu, Kajagugu gets promoted after Sven leaves. Now it looks like Shad is going to get the job that Burgess is vacating. Not a lot of finding other solutions outside the club, which could be for better or worse. You certainly wonder how the same people who have been guiding Arsenal on a downward trajectory are now going to step in and guide it on an upward trajectory, but that's not to say it can't happen. A few little notes here that I think are interesting, Paul. First of all, there's an interview with Dennis Suarez. It just happens to be out right now. And Suarez basically says, I showed up, I got hurt, I wasn't fit, they kept playing me, they kept training me, something was wrong with my pelvis, which who hasn't felt there's something wrong with their pelvis, although for me that's more of a therapist issue than a physical injury. But so anyway, moral of the story is that, like, you wonder, did Emery look at this and say, hey, I had one guy I wanted to come in January. It was the only move I could make. It was a loan move. I needed the numbers. I needed to strengthen the squad. The guy I brought in somehow squeezes through a medical with an injury issue, doesn't get fit. I don't get the right information. He winds up not being available to me the rest of the season, and a head has to roll as a result of that. I don't know. The Ramsey thing, we know that Emery said himself that he was told that Ramsey shouldn't be played and that Ramsey wanted to play, and he did play him. So we don't know. We do know that Arsenal covered the most ground in kilometers this season of any team in the Premier League. Not to mention went to the final in a European tournament that has an extra round over the Champions League, so played a lot of games this season. So I do wonder if some of this is Emery waking up and looking in the mirror and seeing Burgess over his shoulder. I don't know. I mean, do you feel that some of the issues that plagued Arsenal, especially down the stretch, can be pointed back towards fitness and that maybe this makes sense?
I mean, if we managed to run more than any other team in the league, and we did, that's a big jump from the previous year. And I think it would be very hard to say what the issue was. My personal guess would be not that Darren Burgess did a bad job, because he got us to where we ran more than anybody else. It's that he and Emery just didn't see eye to eye at the end of the day. Is he bad? No. Is he on the same page as Emery? Well, apparently not. And to your point of recruiting from inside, I mean, it's feeling much more like the easy option than the anything other option. We're a bit of a train wreck, and the one thing we know we have to do is let go this guy or that guy or the other guy, or things aren't working out with this guy or whatever, be it Sven, be it Darren Burgess. But it doesn't feel like there's a plan. There's a plan to get rid of people because we can't get on with them. But there's not a plan to hire the best or to promote the best, because none of these feel that way. They're just like, we were looking for a replacement for Sven for a while, but hey, maybe we'll just stick with the guy we had, and we kept him. It just seems like a mess. And then you look at the mess over Denis Suarez, who, I'll continue to maintain it's not like we couldn't have used a good Denis Suarez. There are people who make that case we couldn't. Sure, we could have. We could have used Mkhitaryan.
We could have used anyone to strengthen the front. I mean, look, we needed 2 more points. You look at the team we put out against Palace, and even though I was always, as you know, a Suarez skeptic, I think it's pretty clear that had he been fit and usable, he could have come in handy in a run-in where we just flatly collapsed.
Yeah, it's almost like the people who did this were amateurs and hadn't done this before. For all the my fingers twitching to point at Emery, but Emery's really responsible for the first team performance and for going for top 4 in Champions League placing or winning the Europa League. That was all he bloody thought about. He wasn't worried about the youths, the loanees. He wasn't worried about doing the physicals for Denis Suarez. The man was up to his arse in alligators at the time, so I'm going to cut it. There's plenty to blame him for, but Raul, for fuck's sake, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And we know the Cranky's situation, but really this all falls on Raul. He got rid of Sven because apparently they couldn't see eye to eye.
Because he was going to get Monchi in, obviously, Paul.
Yeah. There's another one. Monchi was coming till he decided the same thing Emery announced, which is there's no fucking budget. A lot of people were like, oh, don't be too worried about the fact that we're only doing loans at Christmas. It's because we're stockpiling the money till summer. That didn't seem right to me, and sure doesn't seem right to me now. I think Monchi said, oh, yeah, great. Director of football, wonderful. What's my budget? And they told him. And he said, you have got to be shitting me. And he turned right.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, my question always is, I'm sure Arsenal were offering him a hell of a good salary to come manage that paltry budget. So, a lot of people are willing to try the challenge if the money is right for them personally. Look, we're sort of getting out over our ski tips here. The one thing I will say is that it feels like passing the buck for Burgess to get fired here, to wake up and look at how we finished our season and say, yep, the problem was the head of fitness, the head of high performance. That feels like passing the buck, but we'll never know. I do know that we covered the most ground of any team in the Premier League. We played, just about the most games of any team. You look at Liverpool, Klopp's teams used to finish at the top of the distance covered. That's what he wanted to do. He's altered that. They finished middle of that table this year, and they went all the way to the end of the Champions League and nearly won the Premier League. And you look at Spurs, who totally collapsed at the end of the league season and really had nothing left in the tank. They were the second most ground covered in the Premier League with, what has to be said, a relatively small squad as well. So, you do wonder if managers have to understand a little better about pacing themselves throughout the season, and I'm sure Emery has a lot to learn there. It was his first season managing in England with this kind of schedule. Let's move on to another topic real quick before we get to the fixtures, and that's youth, giving youth a chance. I definitely think that a lot of people are looking forward towards the rebuild at Arsenal and recognizing that incorporating young players is going to be part of that, and that there's a lot of young talent at the club that needs to be incorporated, certainly better than it was this season. Christian Bielik has come out and said, "My future is unknown, but there is one thing I can say for sure. I will definitely not go back to Arsenal U23 team. At this stage, it wouldn't make sense. If I do not receive the possibility to join the first team permanently, I will have to look for other solutions. I feel like a senior player now, so I want to play senior football." He has been impressing, admittedly, at a much lower level of football. Feels like he's been around forever. It is time, if ever, I think, for him to join the first team. Cole Bramall came out and said he wasn't given a look by Emery and that, he's disappointed to see his Arsenal dream. And I think that's a slightly different situation because I don't think he was ever Arsenal caliber. I think that was a long shot at best. But when you look at that quote from Bielik and you look at how youth was incorporated or more to the point, not incorporated this season, do you think the big challenge for Emery this next season, or certainly one of them, is just finding ways to get these talented young players into the squad and see if they can become part of the future?
Well, yeah, and I think it's clear in his first season that was not what Emery was focused on. He was there to coach us into a top 4 spot, and it's basically all he cared about, and it kind of showed. But the Bielik comments, or Bielik, whatever.
And by the way, I want to thank Arsblog News for posting that link with the translation, so full credit there, where it's due, as always. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's quite pointed. I mean, he says, but I did not find out anything specific about him, Emery. In other words, he's heard nothing about or from Emery. If Wenger was still in charge today, I would definitely say that I'm going back to Arsenal, going on a tour and fighting for a place in the first team. Now, that's very, very pointed. And my take on it is, again, I'm not sure that's Emery's problem. That's fucking Raul's problem. These guys, I mean, whether we're keeping Bielik or selling him,
that feels like giving Emery a pass. I mean, he even says it. Arsene Wenger would have told me where I stand. I mean, that. Yeah, but the first team coach tells the young players they're going to be part of the first team tour. That's. I think that's a coach's job. Go ahead. Yeah, fire away.
Hang on. Mm-hmm. Arsene was everything back in the day. So, of course, he talked to Arsene.
That's true.
And Arsene would always have a door open, and he loved the young players. Emery's up to his Arsene in feckin' alligators. Who should be looking after loanees and making sure that they know they're loved? And, whether we buy them or
only
sell
had a loan manager a couple months ago, right? So that's part of the problem right there.
It is, yeah. But, I mean, come on, there's not that much to do for these guys. I mean, we got hundreds and hundreds of staff. Why is nobody making these guys? I mean, if it's Bielik, if it's Cohen Bramall, okay, no big deal. But
can I ask you a question, Paul?
He again mentions Wenger.
Real quick, if you're considering your professional future, your career at your company, and your boss calls you in, sits you down, spends an hour with you, and really maps out how he sees your career, she sees your career developing at the company. Now imagine that instead, the boss's executive assistant calls you in and he's like, hey, the boss isn't going to meet with you, but he's giving me some notes and I'll go over with you what he thinks. Like, which is going to make you feel that there's a legitimate path and plan? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think this can be delegated. I think if you want to develop a relationship with the young players of the team and make them feel that they should stay and fight and battle and be part of the future of the club, if you indeed want that you have to take a personal role in that part of it.
But this is an Arsenal club asset. This is Raul's responsibility and his director of football to make sure all the dots are joining. Yeah, I mean, Emery has a role in this, but Bielik is not his fucking problem. That's an Arsenal problem. He's here to coach the first team. And yes, he plays a role in all of this, but Raul and his director of football, who he doesn't have and didn't appoint and didn't line up after he bumped Sven, it's their job to make sure all the dots are joined together. does Emery have a responsibility? Yeah, but it's a secondary responsibility. His job is to work out what the fuck's going on with the first team, and it's Arsenal's job to make sure that everybody else, all the other ducklings following the duck, aren't getting lost and heading off down the wrong road. So, yeah, okay, Emery, but Raul to the power of 10 for this shit. I mean, who else are we now? Is Emery supposed to be all over what's going on with Reece Nelson? I mean, the guy doesn't even speak English, for God's sake. That was his year one. That was his job, coming up to speed with what he's got. He's got so much on his plate, and it didn't go well. There's so much to slam Emery for. I think it's a danger to just throw everything at him. To me, this is Raul in our organization and having the people in place to make sure all the bases were covered. And back in the day, people felt that Wenger cared, and they don't even know who Emery is.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That is fair, and I think that is a charitable but also reasonable explanation. And that while I do think Raul should be on top of this, I mean, that to me it feels a little below his level. But ultimately, I still think if you're a player and you want to go fight for a first team place, then you want to know that the first team coach is interested in having you do that. And so not having the first team coach do that doesn't mean you don't have a place, doesn't mean you don't fight, but it certainly, to me, could put that doubt in your mind. And Bielik is expressing. I mean, look,
I think that's fine, but it's Raul's job to make sure Bielik gets his time with Emery because it's an Arsenal asset.
Yeah, but you know what? We're also, I mean, let's use the facts we have. The facts we have are that the player himself has come out and said, the old coach would have done this and the new coach didn't. Now, that may be a misunderstanding on the player's part of how the new structure should work, but clearly the player himself has drawn some conclusions, right?
He wants a relationship with the coach, but it's Raul's job to make sure we're not losing our little ducklings off the side.
Fair enough. Look, I mean, I think at this point what we can agree is it's troubling if this communication isn't happening and maybe disagree slightly about where that communication should come from. But we really need to get to...
So I agree where the communication may come from. I disagree with who owns the problem. It's Raul who owns these assets for the club. Emery's up to his oxters. So Raul should be making sure that Bielik and whoever gets their 15 minutes of fame with Emery, and he tells them he loves them.
Well, I mean, we'll see how this plays out, but I mean, we're going to get more information on it because there are other young players like Reece Nelson, Emil Smith-Rowe, Nketiah, Saka, Willock, players who we need incorporated, not to mention if we go out and add additional youth in the summer. So we'll see. We got a few minutes here now. I think we can put 10 good minutes into the fixtures because it is critical that we break down for you the details of the fact that we are playing every team twice. Home and away, which is a scandal. So let's just start, first of all, with the start. Newcastle away. How do you feel about that August run? At Newcastle, home to Burnley, at Liverpool, home to Spurs. Not exactly straightforward.
Not exactly straightforward, challenging, but we played two tough teams to start last year, and yes, we took a couple of losses, but then it's a good way to test yourself and get your shit together and then go on a run. Things get real quick, plus we've the break after that of that interlull.
Interlull right after the North London derby. So
which always seems so weird. Just when it's like you're making love to your partner and you haven't done a very good job, but things are getting better and you're getting into the swing of things. And then like they suddenly get up, put their clothes on, and head up to Leamington Spa because they got to visit their grandmother in an unexplained way. And so I think that's what it'll feel when we get to August 31st. It's like what. What? Who's gone? We're just getting into the swing of things.
I only barely followed any of that, but I do take your point. And I think, look, let's say, I mean, let's lean into the doom just for a second. Mm-hmm. Let's say we take 3 points from our first 4 fixtures, and then we go into an interlull. Let's say we lose at Newcastle, lose to Liverpool, lose to Spurs. Now, I don't think that will happen, and I'm not saying that will happen. We beat Burnley at home. I mean, at that point, do you think we're already in patience with Emery is gone crisis mode that early in the season, or do you think it's going to take a little more time before something like that would happen?
Well, the shit will hit the fan, but I don't think at the deepest level we'll be in crisis mode, but the headlines and the reactions will be pretty bad.
Yeah.
But we get 2 weeks to calm down. Now, if we keep losing after that, then we're in big doo-doo. So we got to get some results. But I do think it's ripe for some agitation, but not quite yet. So I think even if it's not a great 4 games, the shit'll hit the headline fan, but you have more time than that.
One bright spot is we do have a very forgiving group stage Europa League domestic fixture situation. Now that shouldn't matter because hopefully Emery will have learned a lesson and be even more heavily rotating for the Europa League next season. But again, it's pretty straightforward Premier League fare following the Europa League, at least proposed Europa League dates. So we can feel at least a little bit good about that, hopefully. Into September, and it's Watford away, Villa at home, United away. So, 3 games only. I mean, Watford away, we're not sure what to expect from that. That can be tricky. Villa at home should be a win. And then Man United away, obviously, not a place we've been successful. October is Bournemouth home, Sheffield away, Palace home. This is the one that sticks out to me, Paul. If we're gonna look for, the new Project 24, you get it off here. 9 points in October, win all 3 of your league games. Bournemouth, Sheffield, Palace, home, away, home. Now we know Palace at home is virtually unwinnable, but you have to try. Because then into November, it's Wolves home, Leicester away, Southampton home, Norwich away. Leicester away and Wolves home, again, difficult but winnable. That's 7 league fixtures, and then Brighton home, again, totally unwinnable. West Ham away, before City at home. So if we look at the games between United away and City at home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's Project 27. The trip up spots there look like Leicester away, maybe Wolves at home or West Ham away. But again, it's not tough. I mean, would you say that if we're going to make a charge for top 4 and if we're going to have a season that we can get excited about, that October, November, early December period between United away and City at home, that's where we have to make it happen?
It is, and when we look at that run-in over Christmas, New Year's, that's a spicy one. So we need to have got some points and some confidence at that point. That's definitely the run. Now
there's an interlull in there, by the way, between Leicester away and Southampton home. There's an international break.
Yeah, I'm not known for my analysis of the fixture list, but here's an uncanny thing. If you look at Watford, Aston Villa, Man United, Bournemouth, it goes away, home, and if you continue that thread and you take the first letter of each, it goes ha 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 ha. Isn't that?
I don't think our season is going to be a laughing matter, though. So
no,
I don't know. So yeah, but I mean that's it. Project 27: Bournemouth home, Sheffield away, Palace home, Wolves home, Leicester away, Southampton home, Norwich away, Brighton home, West Ham away. Other than Leicester away, will be probably heavily favored in all of those games. Then it's City, Everton, Bournemouth, Chelsea, United, Palace. It gets a little tricky through December, January. As far as the holiday fixtures, just real quick, we have quite a difficult one there to look forward to, thankfully. I mean, City, Everton, Chelsea, and United with only Bournemouth away in between them. That's a stretch where we ironically could go from Project 27 to Project 3. Right? I mean, is that, could you see that being where the wheels come off, that we felt like we were doing all right, we're right back in a top 4 battle, and then lose to City, lose at Everton, beat Bournemouth, lose to Chelsea, lose to United, and we're at Palace away after another FA Cup date with three of our last 15 points.
Yeah, I think that's if there's a period where the wheels come off and we're out of the title chase,
top 4 chase. let's
top 4 chase by whenever. It's probably that Christmas period. I mean, you still have time to make it up if you go on a run, but fuck. So yeah, Man United is January 1st, and then we kind of have not quite an interlull, but a slowdown till in the Premier League, at least till January 11th. So that's.
Yeah, and then I think if you want to look forward to one more reason to be terrified, so let's say we are in the top 4 race right till the bitter end, and you get into April, May. Spurs away on the 25th of April, Liverpool home on the 2nd of May, that's probably going to be right in between a Europa League semifinal and Leicester home on the 18th. So like Wolves away on the 11th. That late April, early May run, Wolves away, Leicester home, Spurs away, Liverpool home. Your quarterfinal and semifinal Europa League is getting slotted right in there. Is that another one of those cases where Emery, if it's still Emery at that point, could be really looking at like a, oh God, what do I prioritize kind of situation? I mean, much the same way it played out this season.
I hope he's really learned that. I mean, it's not the Farmers League final anymore in the Europa League. He said that himself. So I hope he's weaned off this, all my eggs in the Europa League basket. Hopefully we get knocked out before then, so we settle down to what our...
Love your optimism.
Yeah, what our real goal here is, which is to be a valid and viable top four challenger. And so would you prefer to have those venues flipped for the Tottenham and Liverpool game? In other words, that we played Tottenham at home and Liverpool away.
No.
At the end of the season, because Tottenham at home we could beat. Liverpool were probably fucked either direction. So
no, I wouldn't flip them. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at it, Spurs away, Liverpool home this season was 2 points. Spurs home, Liverpool away was 3. So you could say that's better, but like, I think we can go get points at Tottenham, and I think we can get points home to Liverpool. I don't think we can get points at Liverpool. So then the question is, would you rather the one win at home to Tottenham? Well, it's not a guarantee. So give me the 2 games that we can be competitive in over the 1 game we can be competitive in.
Okay.
And then look, when we come to the very, very end of the season, if we're still in it on the last day, Watford at home, bad news, everyone. It's my birthday. We will almost certainly be fucked as a result of that. So we tried. Hashtag we tried. Arsenal 2019-20. Catch the fever. Paul's on Twitter. Pause in my pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo.
My name's Elliot Smith. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Mohamed from Mo Squared on Twitter, StatsBomb scout and talent analyst, is going to break down all the transfers, players you've never heard of. Some you have. We'll talk Carrasco. We'll talk Frazier, because why not? But we'll also talk about some lesser-known names and get real in-depth and real granular on some of these players and what we can look forward to in not signing any of them. So stay with us. Really good stuff coming up after the break. All right, we're back, and now we have the part of the podcast that everybody actually came to hear, which is transfers, squad building, scouting talent, all of that fun stuff. A chance to talk about the kinds of players Arsenal can potentially look forward to having in the squad next season. And so we have an expert on the pod to do it. I will spoil it a little. We're going to be talking about the names that you'd expect Arsenal to be going after, right? So it's Messi, it's Ronaldo, it's Pogba. No, I kid. It's young players. It's players sort of on the edge of the news. And I think this is a really fun chance for us to dive in and understand the crop of talent that, you know, maybe while we don't know about them, could be the players that we wish we had known about a couple of seasons from now. And here to do that with us is Mohamed. You can find him on Twitter at MoSquare. He is a writer for StatsBomb. We're thrilled to have him here. Hello, Mohamed.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. You know, it's funny. I say we, like I'm a we. I'm not a we. I mean, normally this podcast is a we, and there's a panel of people that makes up the we that we are. But I am thrilled currently to have you here. So I just don't want you to think I'm the kind of weirdo who refers to himself as we. I'm a different kind of weirdo.
No worries. I'm like quite excited myself. I've been a Patreon supporter of you guys, and like I really enjoy the stuff that you put out.
Well, that is awesome, and now I'm blushing, and it's all going to get really uncomfortable and awkward for the rest of the podcast. Did we just become best friends? Yes, we did. Okay, so first and foremost, let's do the scouting thing. Let's cover some of the players that people may or may not have heard of. We'll start with one that I think most people are aware of because of the club he's at. But actually, no, before we do that, I had an idea, and I forgot it because you flattered me to death. So just before we dive into the players specifically, let's talk about sort of your process, your background in doing this, and how you go about gathering information and thinking about these players personally before you start writing about them and putting that out there.
Oh, no worries. So like I've been looking at young talents over the past, I guess you could probably stretch it back to like 2015 or so. The first couple of years when I started to write about young players, it was primarily on Liga, given that like France was like a nice place to get cheap talent with high upside. And over the past 2 years, I thought that it would be a good idea just to kind of expand the horizon, and instead of Liga, looking at the Eredivisie, looking at the other Big Five leagues. And yeah, so like it's been really interesting going through like all these prospects and trying to figure out like what makes them tick, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and then trying to figure out how they would fit towards where football is going at the highest level. So like your Liverpools, your Manchester Cities, how they play, and figuring out if these talents can make their way up there. And if they can't, then you're trying to then see like what is their upside and what level they can go.
Do you sort of keep a hit rate for yourself, like a track record, kind of quietly, like your own little evaluation, saying like, all right, I liked this guy 2 seasons ago, he didn't pan out, or I liked this guy 3 summers ago, and now he's at a big club? Like, do you sort of keep your own little what if I were a scout track record of how you're doing on talent evaluation?
No, but I
no accountability. I love it.
Yeah. No, I really honestly should. And I think especially over the past, like what I've done the past 2 seasons, I definitely I made up a list of like a rough list of like the players that I really looked at. And like, I think I could probably then like look through them, trying to figure out like if I hit or miss on them and stuff like that. So I think especially like 2017, 18 and this past season, like I could probably in like future seasons, I can look back and see if I messed up or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we have to look back very far to see if Arsenal has messed up. That's why we are in the position we're in, and you're going to help us get out of it. And you're going to start by telling us if we should be going after Nkunku, a PSG player. I have exhausted my knowledge on him right there. Ted was pretty tight-lipped about Nkunku when we had him on the pod previously. I'm hoping that you were willing to be a little more at ease giving us your thoughts on this player.
Oh, I have no contractual obligation.
All right, so fire away. Let it rip.
I can say what I can. I have like free liberty. The problem with Nkunku is that like we just have we have like a limited sample size. This was the first season. 2018-19 was the first season where he played over 1,000 minutes, and B, like he's kind of been shuffled all over the place. So like it's.
You mean positionally?
Yeah, it was like really. It's really hard in a lot of ways to figure out like what he is, and like this morning, for example, like I looked over like 3 or 4 matches in terms of like on-ball events that he had in Liga, and like I like him, and like I think that he's got kind of the outlines of what you would want from like I would say like the Ramsey role, the kind of like 8-10 like hybrid midfielder who likes to get forward and such, because he's got good passing diversity. He can hit it short, he can hit it long, he can he's also got like good functional athleticism in terms of being able to turn and then use like a quick burst to get past his opposition. So like he's got like the skill set of what you would want out of like a modern advanced midfielder, but it's just we don't have have a big sample in terms of what he can do, and B, he also played on a super team. And the thing with young talents is that you have to be cognizant of the fact that like playing on like mega clubs like PSG will distort some of your value and potentially a lot of your value. So maybe that's the case with Nkunku. I think there is enough when looking at like video of him that like you can project that even if like let's say Arsenal got Nkunku, he could be like at least an average Premier League player and hopefully maybe slightly above average. And given that like I would assume that PSG wouldn't like bargain so heavily for him, like maybe you can get him on a discount, and in that case then I could see like why Arsenal would try to get him.
Yeah, I mean, PSG don't seem to me to be a club that's too worried about, we could be giving away a prospect that could play for us in 3 seasons. Like, they are constantly in win now mode. They have limitless resources. So if they sell a guy for £5 million who becomes a £50 million player, they don't really care. They'll buy him back for $50 million. So I don't think that is too big an issue with them. I mean, as far as, the issue right now with Arsenal having a lot of young players in the academy who may be sort of on the cusp of knocking on the door to the first team, do you see Nkunku being a player who would just be lumped into that group, threatens that group, or potentially you think could come in and be a first team starter right now, plus have the ceiling to go on to greater things in the future?
I think he's good enough to where if he played 1,500 to 2,000 Premier League minutes, he'd be like at least an average like Premier League player, which I think is
that our ceiling, Mo? Is that what we
well,
want?
I mean, like I'm saying that it's kind of like the rough floor. Maybe he's better. Like I honestly don't know what this guy's ceiling is because we don't have like a major sample size on him.
But you would plug him in and play him in the Ramsey hybrid role in a midfield 3 and sort of a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3?
Yeah, I probably would. Because like he's got the athleticism to like he can either make off-ball runs or he can like pick the ball up himself and then dribble a little bit. And he's got from again the video I watched this morning of him, the three or four matches, like he had really nice touch, in particular like in tight areas. So like he can do like 1-2 combinations. He can make like little short passes when he sees like an off-ball run from a teammate. He can make passes into the penalty box and even through ball attempts. Like he's got like good coordination on the ball that I think should transfer over to the Premier League. So like yeah, I think like I think he's good enough to where like if Arsenal say got him on a loan with a cheap option to buy, I would definitely like think hard about doing it.
Okay. And then just lastly, obviously one of the things that you lose with Ramsey are not just the surging runs and the hybrid role, but the end product. So as far as developing any end product, I mean, Arsenal is short on end product, period, outside of the strikers. Do you see that being something that could ultimately develop into his game?
Yeah, I can definitely see him like adding more off-ball runs into like his game, given that he's like pretty mobile, he's got the athleticism, and like even within PSG, like he's allowed to make runs into the penalty box like every now and then as well. And so yeah, like I can definitely see that part. Like in terms of like actual shooting skills, I don't know because like diagnosing shooting skills in general is a very finicky thing. But I think he can do. I think he can approximate the decent amount of value that Ramsey brought in over the past few years. And maybe he turns out to be as good as Ramsey once he gets to age like 24, 25, or even 23.
Okay. Well, I mean, encouraging enough. Certainly sounds like someone we could potentially get and has the kind of skills to replace a player we're missing. I think all of us would agree that we're missing defensive talent, pretty much full stop, with the possible exception of Hector Bellerin, who isn't even fit. So Saliba, central defender, Saint-Etienne, I believe is right. Really stretching my encyclopedic knowledge of world football. Saliba's a player we have touched on a bit, but I'm curious to get your sort of specifics on him. What kind of defender is he? What kind of defender do you think he could be? And is he a player that Arsenal should go for?
Well, like I've read like people like making comparisons to like Koscielny, and I actually think it kind of makes sense given that like Koscielny, like during his peak and when he was like fit, like he was more of like a proactive type of defender, and that definitely is Saliba as well, given that he's pretty mobile for a center back. In terms of like his passing, I think it's functional, not like spectacular yet. He can definitely like make the like in the first phase of build-up when he's like collecting the ball near his own like penalty box, if he sees like an open teammate within the half spaces and he's like clearly wide open, like he can make those type of passes. If he's higher up the pitch and he sees like a player making kind of a little looping run into the final third area or even the penalty box, he'll definitely try to make a long ball pass. It's not great yet, but like given that he's a teenager, like it's definitely understandable.
But that strikes me as more of a back four central defender than one of the wide center backs in a back three. You don't want him necessarily stepping into midfield as much?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, like he did play like a little bit as a fullback, so I can definitely see like with some growth him becoming a type of center back where like if you're building out from the back, he's like on the wide right, and then you have the center back on the wide left, and then you build from there. I think he can have that level of responsibility in due time. In terms of like defensive positioning, that's just very hard to diagnose for center backs, given that it's system related. A lot of it is system related, and even like center back stats in general are like at the whims of what type of like defensive system you're playing under. So I think there's enough to with Saliba that like you can understand why Arsenal would like wonder if they should pay like 25 million, and I think in due time he definitely like he has like enough to where he could be quite good in the near future. So
are you as taken with his physicality though? Like I mean he's a big guy. I mean is that something that you think jumps off the screen when you watch him?
Yeah, and particularly he's just very like he's just very mobile. Like even like when he's like pressured on the ball, like he can make like little turns and then like move up a little bit and then like make a pass. Like he's got, I guess, what I would say like functional athleticism, not just like this hulking like guy, but more so like a guy that can move and can like he's got like the modern characteristics of what you would want from a center back 2019.
Is he a stand-up tackler? I mean, watching Mustafi as much as we have, I think I'm desperate to see a guy who doesn't go to ground at first invitation.
Yeah, kind of. I don't, that's a little bit harder to diagnose, but like I think like he's not nearly as like rash as like someone like Mustafi.
Okay, I'll take it. Look, I'll take it. And as far as whether you think this is the right place for Arsenal to spend a considerable chunk of the resources in a position of need long term, would you recommend him as a guy they get? And also, do you think if they went and got him, that he could potentially start the season in a pairing with someone like Socrates as the center back pairing?
I mean, given like what else you have to work with, like, yeah, honestly, which I think to some extent is kind of damning with faint praise. But I mean, look at what you guys have at center back. It's not the greatest. I actually do think he could probably step in and play like a major role right away.
But I mean, if he did, like, let's say opening game, at Newcastle, it's a back four and it's Socrates and Saliba. Would you say like Arsenal are screwed, or would you say that, that could be fine? Like, is he a guy that we could bring in, and if he had to start 25 games at center back for Arsenal this season, you'd say he can handle that load?
Like, I think in an ideal world, you would bring him in and then like wheel him in slowly. So like maybe like playing like 1,000 minutes in the Premier League, a little bit in the Europa League, and then the season after you would give him like a pretty like sizable role. But I mean, like, I could definitely see in the range of options, like putting him into the deep end and he doesn't flounder. Maybe he's not the greatest center back right away, but like it's kind of like the whole idea of when you're judging like prospects in the Premier League, if they don't drown in their first season, you have to be hopeful that they can be good right away. I mean, in the future as a result. So I definitely think Saliba's in that realm. I'm not sure if he's like good enough to where like I would want to play him like a major role right away. But like, given like what Arsenal have to work with, I mean, I would kind of like shrug my shoulders and be like, okay, maybe it works.
I guess to be fair, right? Like if we were looking at the kind of youngster who could just immediately step in and effortlessly start in the Premier League, that's someone who's out of Arsenal's reach at this point, right? It's like the obvious young superstar is not the player we're targeting. But
like, for example, like I think like someone like Malang Sarr from Nice, he's going to be more expensive apparently. I know like Ligue 1 doesn't technically allow for like release clause, but apparently like Nice have them. They're trying to get like somewhere close to like 40 million pounds for him.
For Sarr? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I definitely think he could be someone like who could play in the Premier League right away and could play like a major role for like a kind of team that's trying to get into the Champions League. I'm not sure if Saliba's quite that good, but like I can definitely I could definitely see him like playing right away and not being a disaster, which I guess is a positive in of itself.
Let's put it this way. These guys aren't on our list, but when you compare him with some of the other mooted center backs of like Upamecano and Anderson, I think from Sampdoria. Yeah. I mean, would you prefer Saliba in terms of age, price, and ability, or do you think there are other guys that you'd be more encouraged by?
I'd probably be more encouraged with someone like Anderson, given his probable, like, you can probably project his passing at a higher level than Saliba, but like, again, like I think if Arsenal did this move, like I would totally understand it.
Okay, I'll take that. Totally understandable move is an incremental improvement in Arsenal's transfer decision making.
Yeah, definitely.
So all right, let's move on to. We're now going to get into a trio of players whose names I have neither heard of nor have the ability to pronounce. Although one of them I've heard of, but not this one. You'll see what I'm talking about in a bit.
No worries.
Yeah, Sangare. Whoa, is that it? Why don't you tell me everything I need to know, including how to pronounce this man's name?
Ibrahim Sangare? Yeah, I really, really, really like him, honestly.
All right, let's get superficial, like really top level for people who have never heard the name before. Team, position, age. What do we got with this guy?
So he plays, Ibrahim Sangare, he plays for Toulouse as a 6-8 type of, he's played some as a 6, played some as an 8, but like, if you played him in a midfield 3, like he would probably be like the base of the midfield. I really like him just because the dude is like, that guy is built. He is 6'3". He's got long strides, and I think more than anything, I'm just very interested in just how good of a passer he could be once he like gets older, because he's already got kind of like a base selection of passes that he can make. He can make, if he has the ball within his own third, he can make penetrative passes into like the middle third for like players within the half spaces. If he's a little bit further up, he can make those passes into like the final third. He is a really good ball carrier, given that like he's huge, and B, like he can move for a dude who's 6'3". So he has that going for him. And really the thing that I wonder is just how good of a passer he's going to be, because the thing is that he takes a decent amount of risk in terms of his passing, which could be constructed as both a good or bad thing, depending on how you would feel about it. Because given that Toulouse were pretty terrible in Ligue 1 this season, like the fact that he's trying to stretch his wings and trying to make those kind of high value passes into like the penalty box or through ball opportunities, he's not good at them currently. But the fact that he's at least having the awareness to try him, I guess, might be a good thing. But on the other hand, like I'm not sure if that's the type of thing that gets better over time. But I do think like he's got enough passing ability to where like he could probably like play for Arsenal like right now. Because I'm really, really high on him.
So, I mean, this is a Xhaka replacement, right? I mean, and I mean, the issue with Xhaka is mobility. So, presumably,
this kid's got no problems with his mobility.
And what about defensive positioning? I mean, a huge upgrade on Xhaka, I can only assume.
I think he just can do more with him, because like he can definitely like get a little. He can definitely gamble on like defensive actions, but I mean, given like his size and his mobility, like he could definitely like track and like put out flames in terms of like defensive actions. I remember like this one play I had on my computer that I was watching yesterday. He basically went stride for stride with Alain Saint-Maximin from Nice, and he's one of the most like speedy wingers that Liga has seen over the past 4 or 5 years. And
that's not Xhaka.
He just stood stride for stride with him and like got the ball from him, and I was like really impressed. So that's the thing that I always come back to with someone like Sangare. I just think you can do more with him defensively in terms of putting out fires, especially after turnovers. Whereas like with Xhaka, that's kind of not the case.
Now look, I don't know if this guy is white, black, anything in the middle, so please no one accuse me of racial bias here. But like you've described him as big and physical. He can stride out. He can keep pace. He's got a range of passing. If Clive were on the podcast, he'd be drooling hearing Vieira in his head. I mean, is that what we're talking about? And again, not basing this on any racial analysis, because I don't know his race.
He is black.
Oh, okay. Like, I had no idea, honestly.
No, I wouldn't say Vieira. I just think like Vieira was a fucking monster. And
he was a unicorn. He was a unicorn.
Yeah. He was so good that like in some ways it was kind of a curse, because like now everyone is trying to find that unicorn.
Yeah, in the same way Yaya Toure was. I mean, you just don't come across players like. But the reason I ask, I guess, is if you played him in a double pivot with Torreira, would one of them have enough progressiveness in your opinion? I mean, Xhaka, for all of his sins, and there are a lot of them, starts a lot of the attacks, is responsible for a lot of the intermediate value passing, the final third entries, things like that. I mean, can Sangare in a double pivot with the Torreira have enough progressive passing to keep the attack ticking over?
Yeah, that's where I'm a little bit concerned. It would probably be better if it was Sangare and Guendouzi as the double pivot.
Okay, I can live with that.
But I think like if Sangare like hits his ceiling as a player, then you could definitely play a double pivot with him and Torreira.
Okay.
More than anything, it would be better if you could just have Sangare, Torreira, and Guendouzi as your midfield three, because then you would have like something really, really interesting. You have the kind of playmaking. You have like the potential playmaking passer with Guendouzi, the bulldog and Torreira, and the more of the do-it-all type of player in Sangare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think like that would be really, really interesting.
Okay. Well, I will say this. I mean, I think a lot of Arsenal fans are ready to move on from Xhaka, but there is no denying the role he plays as sort of and I know people hate this comparison, but quarterback of the attack, just sitting back there collecting the ball and starting things going, and that's got to be replaced. And, if Sangare could do that, that'd be incredible. I mean, just as far as like a fee, I mean, do you have any idea what something...
Apparently he's being linked to Everton from somewhere in the region from like 17 to 22 million pounds.
Scares me a little, only because Everton, not always the smartest, although that may be changing, and certainly their decision to get Richarlison looked good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's fair enough. Like Everton definitely have like a spotty transfer. And even
they
like
bought Theo
Richarlison.
Walcott.
Oh yeah.
And the Gylfi Sigurdsson disaster. Okay, well,
and even like Richarlison, like you could argue that they paid a premium for a player who's good, but like you're not sure if he's good enough to where like a bigger team would come for him for a ridiculous fee, so like in the region of like 65-70 million, and they paid themselves in the 40s for Richarlison, so like they paid a premium for a good player, but I'm not sure like what the ceiling is for Richarlison himself.
Interesting. I believe we stand Richarlison here, but that's okay. So
No, that's fair enough.
The next name is Thuram, a famous name, but not the Lillian variety. Is this pronounced Thuram, and which Thuram is this?
This is Marcus Thuram. He plays for Guingamp in Liga, who just got relegated to Ligue 2. I also really like him, but I also like him... Well, I like him because like I'm just fascinated with what he could be versus what he actually is. So he's also someone who's got like the physical like characteristics. Dude is around 6'2", 6'3". He's built. And I'm really fascinated with him because of two things. One, he's got really good athleticism, both from like a size and strength perspective, and like the ability to like beat people off the dribble, which you wouldn't suspect for someone of his size. Like you would have thought that with him developing, like he would have probably played as like a striker or something like that, which he kind of did play a little bit in Guingamp, but like a lot of his time.
What's his primary position?
As a left wing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we need that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like he's got like close to, I would argue, like elite athleticism, because like he can beat a person off the dribble and then like stiff arm him once he gets past him, and he does it well enough to where like he doesn't like he can get away with it without like drawing a foul and whatnot. Like so like he's really good in that sense in terms of like creating like separation off the dribble.
That sounds kind of like a Zaha situation.
Sort of, yeah, but like in a different way, because like Zaha like can do that, but he doesn't use like size and strength, whereas like Thuram, like once like you're behind him, he will just like keep you behind him and like not get the ball from him. So he's kind of like in some ways kind of like a Ford F-150 on wheels. So
like what Iwobi would be if Iwobi had a little more confidence in that.
Yeah, and also if I think Iwobi was like a better athlete, to be honest. Like this dude's like really, really good athlete. So there's that. And what I also wonder is that like he shows enough glimpses in terms of what he can do after the dribble. So like once he gets the person behind him and he tries to make a pass, he shows enough touch to where like I want to believe that maybe if he plays on a better team, he continues to grow in terms of his passing. And if that's the case, then you really have a really interesting player. But like I don't know if he can. And also I think the thing that's fascinating with Thuram is that given that Guingamp got relegated, he's probably going to come for pretty cheap. And I always thought that he would be a good fit for Arsenal in terms of like the Danny Welbeck utility role. Just like play him, come off the bench, or play him like spot minutes here and there. And then hopefully he can grow from that role into something better. And if he doesn't, and he's just your new Danny Welbeck, that would still be totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, a chaos agent with athleticism and physicality, like we've seen Danny Welbeck turn that into a perfectly reasonable, useful skill. And I mean, the question, if he has that athleticism and strength, could he be a pressing agent? Like, could he trigger a press? Is he someone who has that side to it, or do you think he's just not switched on enough defensively?
I think that's just more so like he just didn't play on the team that pressed all that much. So,
I mean,
like,
so you could see him doing it, though, like, at least physically. It sounds like he profiles that way. Didn't see it.
Oh, yeah, like he's definitely got like the physical profile and the movement, the mobility to do so. Like he's not a stiff dude. He's really, really fluid in terms of his movement. And if the thing that I wonder with him, whereas like Sangare, like I think there's enough to where like I think he could play. I think he's got like enough like base skills in terms of like his passing and stuff like that as a midfielder. Whereas like Thuram, I don't know, but he shows enough glimpses that like I want to believe in that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting. I guess the question is like also if, my big hobby horse has been if you're going to play as a forward for Arsenal and, start 1,500, get 1,500, 2,000 minutes, you better score 6, 7, 8 goals at least. I mean, can this guy score 7 goals in the Premier League?
Not right away. Like, I think, like, if you're buying Thuram, you're hopefully A, going to get him cheap, and B, you're going to definitely blend him in slowly. So, like, somewhere in the region of maybe 750 to 900 Premier League minutes.
Okay, all right. So really a spot sub, not a guy you're going to be starting on the left wing.
I think, like, you spot start him, like, here and there, and, like, hopefully you just, like, give him, like, sub minutes, and then hopefully, like, he can perform well in those sub minutes. That's what I think season 1 is, and if he shows, like, enough, like, development in his passing and whatnot, then, like, season 2 he becomes more of, like, a fixed starter if he shows enough growth. Because I think his ceiling is, like, he could be good, like a good above average Premier League attacking winger.
Okay.
But I don't know how realistic it is that he gets that ceiling.
All right, well, Sangare and Thuram, 2 names to keep in mind. Even if we don't get them, be curious to follow them. We're going to go with one more that people may not have heard of, and then we'll talk about a couple of the mainstream names that are a little more front of the news and what your thoughts on those are. So wrapping up our sort of hipster section, Angelino. I am familiar with Los Angelino. I am not familiar with Angelino. So again, as a total idiot, what do I need to know about who he is, what he looks like, where he plays, what position, and then what you think of him?
Well, he plays for PSV as their left back. Okay. He originally was at Manchester City, and then he went to.
Well, now I feel like an idiot.
No, don't worry. Like he didn't play, and then he went to the Eredivisie. I believe it was NAC Brada for the 2017-18 season, and then PSV got him on a permanent deal in the summer of 2018, and.
Well, we need a left back.
You do, and he's super interesting because I guess the problem is like with the Eredivisie, especially when you're paying for talents that are playing on like one of the super clubs, either PSV or Ajax. How much do you think that can translate into the Premier League is the problem. But like his passing is very, very dynamic, and I really think he could. I really am a believer in terms of his passing because. He can create chances with his crossing. He can make kind of like the grounded passes into the attacking third or even within the box. He's got pretty good athleticism. I don't think it's quite like the nuclear athleticism that someone like Youssef Attal from Nice has, where I think like that dude is just close to a once in a generation type of athlete. I don't think Angelino's quite like that, but he's definitely like very mobile for his position. And yeah, like I think he was just really, really good this season for PSV, and I could see him like working out in the Premier League if like his passing skills translate well.
Well, and he doesn't have to be a very good defender to be better than Kolasinac. So here's the question: I mean, does he have the versatility to be a wing back, stroke fullback, or is he purely one or the other?
I think he has the versatility to be a wing back because like his positioning a lot of times was like high up the pitch. I guess like the worry is that. How good is he going to be like defending turnovers given his high positioning or even his own turnovers? So I'm not quite sure how that is, but I think like if you're getting him, you're hoping that he really hits as a passer and he hits as like a mobile fullback, and then from there you hopefully can teach enough like defensive responsibilities for him.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, again, the player he'd be replacing is Nacho Monreal, who's basically washed up, and we love him, but there's not much left in the tank. And then Kolasinac, who cannot defend. So, like, the other thing
I like to think he's better than Kolasinac. Like, I don't think it's a strength for him in terms of defending, but like, I don't think he's. I would hope that he's not an outright disaster.
And what's, I mean, again, just guessing, what's the fee for someone like that going to look like?
Well, like it seems like PSV are going to like sell pretty. It seems like both Ajax and PSV are like bracing for like a summer where they're selling a lot of their talents, like Steven Bergheim, who I adore. But like he seems he's going to be going for like somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 million pounds. Irving Lozano, who I'm honestly surprised played another season at PSV, given like what he did at the World Cup and what he did this season prior to the World Cup. So I think. One of, if not both of those guys are going to leave. And I could see maybe Angelino going for 25 million euros, possibly. There's also the problem where I think Manchester City has a buyback clause.
That's not
so
great.
So I don't know like how you would operate with that. I guess you're hoping that like Manchester City don't really give enough shit about Angelino, so that they'll just be like, okay, we don't really.
Well, it just depends if they think Mendy can stay fit next season, right? So
yeah, oh god, I really love Mendy. It's a shame that that dude's knees are just looking more and more like gum.
Yeah,
like
yeah. Well, hopefully him and Kane's ankle. So all right, well, I mean that's definitely something that we'll keep an eye on, Angelino, because left back is a need, and I'd be curious to see if and where he goes, and if Arsenal are on the case. So then, because basically what we now know from the news that's coming out is that Arsenal's transfer policy is being worked on by the crack staff of Sven Mislintat's Post-it notepad. That appears to be who's running transfer policy. But in the more blockbuster names you've heard of section, two that have been mooted are Fraser and Carrasco. I am loath to touch on Fraser because it's starting to feel like this was one of those, his agent just kept insisting Arsenal are interested to try to get Bournemouth to do something, maybe give him a new contract. Now he's saying he might stay and leave on a free. Is Ryan Fraser someone that a club like Arsenal should be looking at putting big money into?
No.
And for the people who are like, yes, absolutely, why no?
I just don't think he fits for like what Arsenal are wanting to do. Like, given that like it seems like Unai Emery wants his fullbacks to be the ones that create out wide via like crossing and whatnot and cutbacks and such. I don't really see what the point is of getting someone like Ryan Fraser who does that. So like you kind of would have like too much of like a not even a good like you'd have too many players who.
Well, what is Fraser bad at? Like, so here's the thing. He put up a season, his only season really, but I think a 7-goal, 14-assist season, something that really does jump off the paper in terms of those kind of counting stats. Now, I realize when you look at the advanced metrics and some of the circumstances surrounding that, you can undermine some of that. But like, what is he bad at? What are the weaknesses in his game that make him not a desirable player to target?
I just think he lacks like the pop that you would want from like a modern day winger in terms of like athleticism off the dribble and like being able to carry the ball as well. It just seems like he's a guy who like really relies on his delivery in terms of crosses and like passes and such. And I think like if like the fullback didn't have as much responsibility as it seems like he does within like Unai Emery's system, maybe you can make the argument that Ryan Fraser would work. But I just think like you'd have like kind of a duplicate of like skills from the left side and not enough like diversity. So
I guess would the counter argument be that like if you look at Kolasinac and Iwobi, they both rank like near the top in the Premier League at expected goals assisted this season, XGA or XA. Neither one of them is particularly clean with their delivery in the final third, and Emery probably ideally doesn't want to continue with a back three. So if he is going to go to a back four where the winger's going to have more of the responsibility to make the delivery, where the fullback might overlap a bit, but certainly not as much as a wing back does, would that change your opinion on Fraser?
Maybe. I just don't think even then I wouldn't want to. Like, here's the thing with Ryan Fraser. I wouldn't necessarily like mind him being on Arsenal if he was on a free. If I could just be like, hey, here's Ryan Fraser. He's going to come off the bench. It's kind of a change of pace type of player, kind of like beat on like
the Shaqiri role at Liverpool, maybe.
Sort of like that. And like what? Liverpool paid £13 million for him. Mm-hmm. So like if it was either a free or like on the really really cheap end of stuff, yeah, I could definitely understand that. But like, given that it seems like Arsenal don't have the greatest resources in terms of transfer budget this summer, like I don't see why I would spend a decent chunk on a guy who's like not really all that dynamic outside of his delivery in Ryan Fraser. He's 25, so like if he doesn't hit, it's not going to be like an Ozil situation where like you're going like, how the fuck am I going to get this guy off my wage bill? But it's going to be like you might have to take like a loss on him in terms of like
we don't need to be doing that at this point.
Yeah, so, it just wouldn't really make sense. Like Fraser seems like the perfect guy. Like if he was on a free or if he was on like a cheap transfer, like somewhere in the region of like £10 million, sure, I would do it. Why not? Change of pace type of player, that would be okay. But like if I'm spending 25 million pounds on him, I just don't see what the upside is.
Okay, I'm on board with that. How about another one though that looks like it could be happening? And with Arsenal, you never know. It's possible nothing will happen at all. But Yannick Carrasco went to China And I think a lot of people have opinions about that. But the fact is that the reason he went to China is a little murkier. Some people think, oh, just chase the money. There's actually sort of a conspiratorial theory out there that may be closer to the truth about the people that own Atletico needing to send him to China and part of a deal to pay something back or third-party ownership. It all gets kind of murky. But regardless of why he went, he's coming back, and Arsenal seem to be in the lead to get him. How do you feel about Carrasco as Arsenal's sort of premier acquisition of the summer?
This is a move where I would understand it on a much better level than I would with Fraser.
How do you feel about him as a player then? I mean, I have to admit, I didn't remember him so well from Atletico. I mean, I remember him and I remember watching him, but I didn't remember what kind of player he was. And just looking over the statistics, and I know those don't tell the whole story, I don't know that he looks as eye-catching as I thought. So what are his strengths and weaknesses, and why do you like this as a move?
Well, to be fair, like my memories of him come from like his 2014-15 season at Monaco, but like even those are kind of fading. But like I remember him being like this really like agile dribbler, being able to like control the ball in space. He had good coordination in terms of like his passing and tight spaces as well. Like I just remember like he had like pretty good skill set for what you want from the modern day winger, and he played on a Monaco team that were fairly like they were not close to being the expansive version of themselves that they were like 2 seasons later when they won Liga and they made a deep run in the Champions League with Mbappe and Bakayoko, that version. But like I remember liking Carrasco quite a bit, and I guess like the argument that could be made from is like, okay, and at Monaco he played on a more primitive version in terms of like what they can do in attack. He went to Atletico, not exactly the most expansive team, even though they've consistently been one of the top 4 teams in La Liga. He's still 25. You would hope that like his athleticism hasn't deteriorated from going to China, and he's still more or less the same player that he was prior to that move. So like I think there's like enough here to like I could understand the risk, the kind of the risk reward type of kind of like spectrum with Carrasco, and like why Arsenal would do it, because like his numbers, I think even if like he hit, he wouldn't be I don't think he'd be like a great player, but I think he'd be someone who can justify that transfer.
Okay. I mean, that's encouraging because it does look like it might happen. I think people are pretty excited about it, and the validation that it seems like a smart way to go is all I need to sink all of my hopes into it. So I appreciate
think like
that.
a decent like it's not like the greatest comparison, but like when West Ham got like Felipe Anderson, there's risk in when they got him as well, because his Lazio numbers at times were like really, really good, but then like he had spells where like he barely played as well, and there were questions around like there are like kind of surrounding questions around him, and West Ham got him, and like it worked enough to where like they got a mid-table finish in the Premier League and all as well. So like you would hope that like Carrasco's kind of like an even better version of that, to where like he's just like an above average Premier League player right away, produces somewhere in the region of like 0.45 to 0.55 expected goal plus expected assist per 90. And if he does that, like I think that's definitely worth like 25 million pounds or whatever the price it is that Arsenal might pay for him.
Yeah, sounds good to me. So let's wrap up with this just real quick then. As far as squad building, like we've mentioned some young players, we've mentioned some players that are kind of unheard of players. We haven't mentioned, weirdly, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappe, any players like that. And the reason is because Arsenal don't have any fucking money. And part of the reason is because of the way we've built the squad up to this point. And so I'm curious to get your take on 2 things. One is sort of like, what philosophy do you think a club like Arsenal needs to be employing in terms of squad building to get this turned around? And would you approve of the sale of a major asset to get there, like a Lacazette or an Aubameyang, if the price is right, despite the fact that they're sort of the only fun things about the team?
Right. So like I've always thought for like the past, I would even extend this back to like 2015, 2016. Like Arsenal should have been Dortmund 2.0. They should have been a team that like collected a good amount of young talent and like used their ability as, I know we like to I know like a lot of people like to shit on Arsenal, but like it's still a global club and a club that is
Yeah,
one
huge
of the
club in London, beautiful stadium, big club, big history, was in the Champions League. I mean, there was a lot there.
Right, and they should have used that to where they get young talents, and maybe not like the highest echelon of talents, but like someone like a Herving, like let's say like if a Herving Lozano like existed 3-4 years ago at his current
Well, he
ability.
did exist. Just now.
Well, he did exist. Sorry, he did exist. But
I
like,
know what you
if
mean.
Herving Lozano at 23 existed in 2016, I guess, like
Right.
if you put him then, like that type of player, someone like you get who's not quite the A standard like young player like an Ousmane Dembele, but like a little bit lower, like that type of player. I thought Arsenal should have been collecting a lot of those, especially like when you got closer and closer to the end of Sanchez and Ozil's deal, because then you could feel much more comfortable selling those guys, getting their money, and then you still have hopefully like a couple ready-made replacements ready to take their role. So I always thought like Arsenal should have been Dortmund 2.0. They should have put like much more emphasis on like stat DNA, trying to find these gems before everyone else did, get them, and then like hopefully reap the rewards later on, which they didn't. And you could have even done this like 2 years ago in the summer of 2017, which you didn't quite do that either. And now you're kind of paying for the sins of neglecting to have a good young talent base that you should have had.
Yeah,
given that like you are a major fucking club with a lot of money compared to a lot of clubs in Europe, you should have like used that ability to collect young players.
Yeah, and I mean, it is. I mean, do you think that the biggest damning thing is just that Arsenal have not acquired any asset that has matured in value substantially in really the last decade? I mean, Ramsey's going for free. That's more mismanagement than it is the lack of the asset. But other than that, I mean, I can't think of a diamond in the rough type player that Arsenal has bought that's worked out. I can't think of a 21, 22, 20-year-old player that Arsenal bought cheap that no one really had heard of who turned out to be a huge asset. Now, look, Guendouzi might be that guy.
I think like at this rate, like your best bets are like the two guys you got last summer.
Torreira and Guendouzi. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if everything breaks right and Rob Holding comes back from like his injuries, maybe he could have been like a good solid center back. And you guys got him for pretty cheap, I believe it was. So
I think Arsene made it very clear he's sorry he didn't cost £50 million. All right, well, look, I think that's a good stopping point. I think ultimately the names you've given us are really fascinating, and I know whether Arsenal go after them or not, I'll be curious to sort of track their progress and keep track of whether you are, in fact, the talented scout that you purport to be. If not, it's at Mo Square is where you want to direct any criticism. No, I'm kidding. I hope you'll come back and do this again. Maybe even this summer we can go over another crop of targets potentially.
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to do it.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. All right. Well, you can find Mohamed on Twitter at Mo Squared and I Mo Square, and you absolutely should do it. Mo, thanks so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure, and we will definitely do it again. Hey, look, my name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review. Write nasty things about, let's see, Tim and Clive. You know, Clive, nobody ever writes nasty things about Clive, and he definitely needs that. He needs to bring himself down a notch, so please write some nasty things about Clive. We'll have another transfer roundup on the Patreon side next week if you want to do that. If you don't worry. We'll have more of these pods throughout the summer with fun guests and lots of transfer talk, even though no transfers ever actually happen. So we hope you're having a great summer. We will definitely be here with you through thick and thin, and all that goes until the season starts in August. So until then, we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer window.